Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see current affairs of 4th October 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. First, let us try to see some brief introduction regarding the topics that we are going to discuss in this lecture. So first topic is about gaming disorder. So this gaming disorder, why I selected this topic, because when you want to write any essay, you have to focus on introduction. So many students, they asked me like how to start introduction and how to write introduction. So I selected this article mainly to show how can you write introduction by narrating a small story. And here this gaming disorder is also very important because recently, I think 20 days ago, we discussed about one article regarding Chinese government came up with restrictions regarding this online gaming. So how it is relevant and how can we take such a step mainly to control children to play online games. So that thing we can talk regarding this topic. So that will be important from our society. And next topic it is about no information on 2018 plan to collect OBC data. So in 2018, our government said that they are going to collect OBC data as well in this upcoming census. So in this census 2021 has been delayed due to this COVID-19 pandemic, and one RTI mainly filed regarding whether they are going to collect, whether they are coming up with any plans to collect the data of OBC or not. So regarding that, this article is important from our polity point of view. And next topic it is about Chinese transgressions or testing India. So actually what happened regarding India-China border, we are having disputes along 3 sectors. Eastern sector, central sector and as well as western sector. So as you all know about this western sector, it is at a line of actual control, and at eastern sector at Uttarakhand and as well as Himachal Pradesh area. Now this article mainly talking about issue in Uttarakhand. So that we are going to discuss in very great detail. That will be important from our international relations and even security point of view. And next topic it is about British era Bangla is home to Brahmaputra Heritage Center. So now one British era Bangla which mainly converted or renovated and it made into Brahmaputra Heritage Center. So here we need to understand what is the significance of these rivers. That will be important, and we are going to talk about this Bangla that will be comes under our art and culture point of view. And next topic is about our economic recovery. So this article which is mainly talking about 2 important report. So first one it is about index of industrial production, that is core sector performance, and even purchasing manager index. So by taking these 2 reports into consideration, and they said that we are going to have this economic recovery, and this topic which is mainly talking about analysis of these reports actually. And next one is peace at the heart of education. So as you all know, October 2nd, it is Gandhi Jayanti. Not only Gandhi Jayanti, but also International Day of Non-Violence. So here, mainly in this COVID-19 period, we are seeing large number of inequalities that is seen in society. So whenever there is rising of inequalities, that will leads to social distress. So what can be done? So what will be the solution? So solution here, it is nothing but education. So we are going to discuss that topic. That is very important. And next topic is about India and China border issues. So that is important from our international relations. So we are going to discuss that as well. And there is one article regarding Taliban which appeared in page number 7. Already we discussed enough regarding the Taliban. You can go through that article. It is very easy to understand as well. And now let us see the first topic. Title says gaming disorder increases during pandemic. So actually if you see this introduction, it is a very nice introduction. So to introduce this topic of gaming disorder, actually author narrated a small story by taking a boy as a reference. So here introduction says that Anand, a jovial, extroverted 15-year-old in Bangalore, he got a personal phone made to attend online classes. But what happened within 6 months, he started spending 7 hours of time a day on this mobile phone. But he's not using that mobile phone to attend classes, but he started spending more time mainly in playing online games. So because of this, whenever children who spending a lot of amount of time in especially playing games, then there will be some behavioral changes that we can see, like insomnia, that is inability to sleep, to get sleep. And next one is withdrawal from social contacts. So for example, if any parents, if their parents say that let us go outside, then he will be not coming and he will be not attending any social gathering, so and so, like that we can see some social contacts, withdrawal from social contacts. And even academic failure, because rather than studying books, whenever he is playing online games, then how can he get that syllabus and as well as some concepts, right? So because of this academic failure we can also see, and as well as he will experience extreme anger, irritability. So because of all these things, his parents mainly saw that there is some behavioral change in their son, and they took their son to National Institute of Mental Health and Neurological Sciences, and finally they diagnosed this children is suffering from this syndrome of gaming disorder. So in this way you can introduce a topic. So whenever you are writing any essay, please directly don't start with that topic. For example, here this topic, it is about gaming disorder. So in introduction you should not write about what is this gaming disorder. First you need to introduce the topic to examiner. So in this way you can write a small story. So whenever I am correcting essay paper of yours, people who students who enroll into this current affairs package, always I try to say like you have to start your essay with a small story. Then you can see like if you read this, then you can understand the concept clearly, and examiner also understand what is your viewpoint. And introduction plays an important role, because introduction is very important, such that if you write a good introduction, then examiner in the next 30 minutes he need to read your entire essay. You should not get any boredom. So if you want to make engage examiner for next 30 minutes to read your essay, you have to focus on your introduction. So introduction is a deciding factor actually for your essay. So in this way you can write your essay. So to explain this itself, I selected this topic, and even this gaming disorder is also very important. So now let us go into this topic and let us try to see context. Already I explained you, right? So if you're talking about some data which is given according to this gaming addiction, according to All India Gaming Federation, India's online gaming industry is expected to be worth about rupees 15,500 crore by 2023. So now you can understand the market of this online gaming industry. And even in 2019 survey, US based Limelight Networks, which mainly found that India had second largest number of gamers after South Korea. So after South Korea, India it is standing a second place in number of gamers. And even WHO, World Health Organization, which mainly categorized this gaming disorder as a mental health condition. So in 2000 itself, WHO, World Health Organization, mainly categorized this gaming disorder as a mental health condition in 2018. So in last month, China limited gamers under 18 years to just 3 hours of online games per week. So due to this COVID-19 pandemic, almost in all the countries it disrupted education. So education institutions like schools, colleges, universities, they shifted for this online teaching. So whenever we are going for online teaching, so students, they need digital gadgets, for example tablets or mobile phones or laptops, and they need internet, okay, an internet network. So because of this network, many people, they are using that mobile phones or tablets and internet mainly to play games rather than engaging in this online studies. So because of this, recently China came up with some limitation regarding children who are less than 18 years of age, they should play just 3 hours in a week. They should play games just 3 hours per week during specified times. And it also, Chinese government also made industry responsible for enforcing this restriction. In the same way, we can also come with the type of restrictions such that we can decrease the learning gap that mainly seen in children due to this COVID-19 pandemic. So if you see some facts regarding what is this gaming disorder. So according to WHO World Health Organization, which mainly said that gaming disorder, it is a pattern of gaming behavior. For example, digital gaming or video games, etc. And here this gaming disorder which mainly characterized by impaired control over gaming. So when parents are saying that you should not play games, it is a time to study or time to sleep or time to eat, so there will be the no control on their body, so they will not listen to the orders of parents, and there is increasing priority given to playing game over other activities like reading and eating, so on, so sleeping, etc. So this is about this gaming disorder. So this is a definition which is mainly given by World Health Organization. So World Health Organization classified this gaming disorder. It is a pattern of gaming behavior which mainly characterized by impaired control over gaming, which leads to increase in the priority given which is mainly to playing but not for other activities. So for gaming disorder to be diagnosed, we can see there will be some changes in their behavior pattern changes. For example, impairment in personal, family, social, educational and as well as occupational behavior. And observation should be at least 12 months. So these are some important things that you need to remember regarding this gaming disorder. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says no information on 2018 plan to collect OBC data. So OBC stands for other backward class data. So what happened, why it is in news? So if you see background, we need to go back to August 2018. So on 31st August, especially on 31st August 2018, our Ministry of Home Affairs announced that they are going to collect OBC data for the first time in next census, that is from 2021. So this 2021 census data which had been delayed due to this COVID-19 pandemic, and now one RTI mainly placed, okay, so right to information application filed. So under this our Registrar General of India came up with a reply to that RTI. He said that there is no information, okay, they are not going to collect OBC data in this census 2021. So this is about this topic in brief. And now let us try to see context. So Office of Registrar General of India. So Office of Registrar General of India said that deliberations and file notings regarding center's announcement in 2018, especially to collect this OBC other backward class data, so it is part of 2021 census, is not available. So here one RTI right to information application mainly filed. So in reply here Registrar General of India RGI said that yes, government made announcement in 2018 to collect this OBC data along with the census 2021, but as of now notings regarding this, it is not available. So this is the thing which mainly said by this RGI, Registrar General of India. So if you see some details, it mainly says that RGI, Registrar General of India, in its response to RTI query which mainly filed by the Hindu. So in this response, it mainly said that data regarding caste, communities and as well as other backward classes other than notified, that is other than SC and STs, they are not collected in the census. So this is the thing which mainly said by this RGI. And on August 31st, 2018, our Ministry of Home Affairs announced that OBC data will be collected for the first time in the next census. But here this promise had not kept here. So according to this RTI reply, we can say the government promise had not been kept. And the first phase of this 2021 census, the house listing and housing census, that mainly conducted along with the National Population Register from 2020 April 1, but this event or this census mainly postponed due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And here Registrar General of India, which mainly works under administrative control of Ministry of Home Affairs, and this RGI is responsible for conducting of decennial census exercise. That means how many years we are going to conduct this census. So for every decade, that means for every 10 years we are going to have our census data. That is 2001 census, 2011, 2021, like that. But this year's census data which made it delayed due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And now let us try to talk about what is this caste census. So if you see about this caste census, so every census in our independent India that started from 1951 to 2011. So 2021 had been delayed, right? So from 1951 to 2011 we had every census for every 10 years. And this census data will be published mainly like SC data and as well as STs, scheduled caste and as well as scheduled tribes. This data will be released but not released for other caste. Okay, so caste census means nothing but whenever census is happening, so along with that census they will be publishing the data regarding caste, for example scheduled caste and as well as scheduled tribes, but here it is not released for other caste. So before that, every census until 1931 which mainly released data on different caste peoples, not only scheduled caste and as well as scheduled tribes. But however in 1941 caste based data was collected but not published. So since 1941 onwards caste based data it is not published. So in absence of such a census, there is no proper estimate regarding population of OBCs, other backward class people, and as well as various groups within OBCs and as well as others. So why we need this caste data? So as we all know that in so and so state, so and so caste people they are dominating and there will be minority people. And if you see state governments and as well as central governments, they will come up with a number of schemes, especially for this downtrodden people. So if there is no proper data, means how can we encourage those peoples? So for encouraging of those peoples and encouraging the government to come up with a number of schemes for development of so and so people, so we need here caste data. So if you see, if you go back here, so even Mandal Commission also estimated OBC population is about 52%. And some other estimates they have been based on this national sample survey data. So if we are having large amount of this OBCs, so government need to take some steps mainly to encourage these people to come along with the mainstream society, especially for the downtrodden people. So if you're talking about what is the significance of this caste census, so first one is we need to enumerate the marginalized. So caste census which will actually brings to particular the number of people who are at margins and who are at deprived, or the kind of occupations they pursue, or the kind of hold that institutions like caste have on them. So what happened? So if you're having this caste data, it will be very much helpful, especially to help this marginalized people. So still, for example, if you're talking about manual scavenging, which is mainly done by the scheduled caste people. So if we are having the data regarding the scheduled caste and what are the occupation they are doing, so we can have a data regarding even based on their occupation. So for example, if you see even now manual scavenging which is continuing and that is leading to deaths even now in this India, in our country. So to come out of that, we need to have a proper data regarding how many people they are working. And here how can we replace these people with the technology, and how can these people who are replaced they will get other types of jobs. So in this way government can come up with the policies if it is having data, right? And next one is data for policy making. So as I explained now, so for every policy we need data. So this information will be very much helpful, especially for a proper decision making. And next one is judicial backing. Courts in India have often empathetically said that it is important to have adequate data with regard to reservation. So if we are talking about reservation, so here according to some important cases, let me know which is that case which is regarding reservation. So according to important Supreme Court judgment said that it should not cross more than 50%. But how can we say that it is more than 50% or not? So if you are having the caste data, then only we can show the evidence regarding so and so people or minority people, so and so people or downtrodden people. So government will have sufficient data to substantiate its view. And next one is the caste will also offers privilege. Caste, it is not only the source of disadvantage, but it is also one of the very important source of privilege and as well as advantage in our society. And next one is caste does not marginalize. So we need to do away with the idea of caste being applicable to only disadvantaged people, poor people, and as well as people who are somehow lacking. And next one is it will be also very much helpful to get rid of caste rigidities. So counting caste does not necessarily perpetuate caste or caste system, but even the myths regarding this caste system will be eliminated. So in this way we need this caste census, and let me know your opinion regarding this caste census, whether we can go with this caste census or not. So what will be the advantages and what will be the disadvantages? Please come up with your own perspective and let me know in our comment box. So now let us move on to next topic. Title says Chinese transgressions or testing India, says officials. So if you're talking about border security forces, so here we are having many border security forces. For example, we are having different types of CRPF personnel, Indo-Tibetan Border Forces and as well as Border Security Force BSF. Okay, and we are having number of things, right? So let me know about those important forces and which are the areas they are guarding. For example, India Pakistan border, India Bangladesh border, India Nepal border, India Bhutan border, in etc. Okay, so if you're talking about this article, which mainly talking about Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force, which is mainly guarding India and Chinese border. So now across this LAC region in western sector we are having dispute, and even some areas they did not have complete engagement since March 2020 onwards. We went for several rounds of talks between India and Nepal, though there are no fruitful results that is seen, especially in some areas. And if you see now this article mainly talking about issue at the central sector, especially in Uttarakhand area. So in this Uttarakhand area, there is increasing of Chinese transgression that is seen. So regarding this article Easy News. So if you see this image, you can clearly understand. So Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army soldiers, and you can see here different tanks are present here. Okay, so because of this, we can say there is increasing of transgression of Chinese that is seen in this Uttarakhand region. And now let us try to see this topic, and this will be important from your international relations point of view. So if you see context, it mainly says that transgression by Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army soldiers that is seen in Barahoti in Uttarakhand in August. So in month of August, we can see there is transgression of this Chinese People's Liberation Army that is seen in this Uttarakhand region. So in this region we can see there is a large size patrols that is seen, that is mainly conducted by China, and it is mainly saying that here this Chinese mainly asserting their claim that while also testing India across this LAC region. So this is a thing which mainly said by our defense minister. Our defense minister said that there is transition that is seen from Chinese side in this Uttarakhand region, and is also testing across this line of actual control. So if you see some details, it mainly says that, so in this regard there is a need for a better cooperation synergy between our Indian Army along with our Indo-Tibetan Border Force. Okay, across this ITBP and as well as with Indian Army, we need a cooperation, we need synergy, we need coordination. So Chinese transgression in the middle sector, it is not new, but now this time it is a very concern, because there is increase in the number of this PLA troops that is seen in this area. So last transgression in this Bharoti was around the same time in the last year. In the last year also we saw there is a transgression from the Chinese side in this area. And also this area, it is one of the mutually disputed area between India and China. And over 100 People Liberation Army troops along with a large number of horses, they came in about 4 to 5 kilometers inside this Bharoti ridge line. So inside this Bharoti ridge line for 4 to 5 kilometers, PLA troops, they mainly entered along with their horses. And one important reason for increasing the number of troops in these Chinese patrols, it is to prevent any surprise. And this one is army is also co-located with this ITBP, Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force, at this Rimkim, that is about 8 kilometers from this that is LAC. But here ITBP people, they are very much responsible for policing and as well as patrol. Okay, so here what happened in this context, we need a proper joint mechanism and we need a proper cooperation between this ITBP and as well as army forces, mainly to prevent Galvan Valley type of incidents coming soon in future. And if you see some data, it mainly says that ITBP was raised in aftermath of 1962 war. So in 1962 we had a war with China. So after this Indo-China war, we came up with this establishment of this ITBP, and this ITBP mainly guards across this Indo-China border. Okay, and it mainly guards about 3,488 kilometers along LAC region. And here this ITBP mainly comes under Ministry of Home Affairs. So this is very important glimpse fact. And next one is, as per data which is given by Defense Ministry in 2019, there were about 326 translations along this LAC. Okay, so this is about this data. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says British era Bangla is home to Brahmaputra Heritage Center. So I want to give you one homework for you students. Please do some research regarding this river Brahmaputra and let me know about this Brahmaputra river. So for example, I will ask you some questions. So where it is originated? So river Brahmaputra, where it is originated, and which are the left bank and right bank tributaries of river Brahmaputra? River Brahmaputra, which mainly flows in how many states in India? And next one is one important riverine island that is seen in river Brahmaputra. Name of that riverine island. And you can also talk about some important fauna which is seen in this river Brahmaputra. So these are some important questions that you need to address regarding this river Brahmaputra. So now let's try to come and let us see this topic. So if you see context, it mainly says that British era Bangla. So British era Bangla on a hillock. So this is mainly used to be 17th century military office of a home rulers. So as if you completed your model history, you can come across as a home rulers. So this Bangla, it is 17th century military office of this a home rulers, and now this building converted into a heritage site. So this site mainly depicts the life of the river Brahmaputra. And if you see some details, it mainly says that Vice President inaugurated Mahabahu Brahmaputra River Heritage Center, which is on Guwahati's Barpurkarthila. Okay, means that is Barpungs hillocks. Okay, so our Vice President inaugurated this Mahabahu Brahmaputra River Heritage Center. So if you're talking about this Bangla, which is Scottish type of wooden Bangla, and this Bangla mainly standing since 1850s onwards, and this building mainly renovated and converted into a heritage site. So this is okay, this is about some important details. And now let us try to see what will be the significance. So if you see significance, as you all know, this river Brahmaputra, it is mainly belongs to our Himalayan river system, and it is one of the majestic river. So it is a very important because of its significance as well. So the river Brahmaputra Heritage Center, which has been set up in nearly 150-year-old Bangla after an elaborate restoration. So here what happened, this majestic river, and this river which is having a great significance. So because of this, mainly to conserve this river, we came up with this Brahmaputra River Heritage Center. So if you are talking about one more significance, here the national campaign for rejuvenating Indian reservoirs and as well as inclusion of lessons on water conservation and the school curricula. So these are also other important areas. For example, national campaign for rejuvenating Indian rivers, and even inclusion of lessons on water conservation, and even for the we need to incorporate this learning at a school age or at a tender age of children. And if you're talking about other attractions, so first one is center has on display the history of Battle of Sariaghat. Okay, so Here the center has display of history of the Battle of Sariagat and the heritage of Assamese war boards. So you need to refer some facts regarding what is this Battle of Sariagat. So this will be important from your prelims point of view. And even other attractions mainly include collection of traditional fishing equipment, photographs, artifacts which are mainly related to the history of Guwahati, and river transport, installation and depiction of textile designs, ethnic motifs, indigenous musical instruments of communities, etc. So these are some important other attractions of this site. So now let us move on to next topic. Title says tentative recovery. So this article mainly talking about economic recovery. So the central theme mainly says that current quarter holds the key to determine the durability of economic recovery. So if you see central theme, it mainly says that so the current quarter holds the key to determine the durability of economic recovery. So it is mainly talking about economic recovery, and this article mainly took into consideration two reports. So first one, it is our core sector, okay, and next one is PMI, Purchasing Managers Index. So if you're talking about this article introduction, which mainly introduced about macroeconomic data. So there are two separate sets of macroeconomic data. So one from the government regarding output at 8 core industries in the month of August. We discussed about this topic. And even PMIs, okay, PMI data. So these two reports mainly says that there is a point to a recovery that is seen in especially industrial activity. So if you see why it is important and why we came up with some growth in these two reports, because there is increasing of government spending and even infrastructure projects they again restarted. So because of all these things, there is increasing of economic recovery signs that is seen in our market. And however, there is 9% of slump in diesel consumption from preceding months. Okay, so because of this, we can see there is a contraction of about 5.5%. And reports regarding this fuel consumption trends from September to a significant slowdown last month, and a less encouraging sign, especially when one considers the renewed uptrend in the pump prices of automobile fuels. So what happened here? Here, because of increasing or rising of the price of these fuels like diesel and petrol, so we can see there is decreasing of consumption of fuels in fuel trends that is seen here. So it is very much less encouraging, especially for this automobile sector. So as you all know, there are many reports which are coming in the newspaper regarding this automobile sector, which is going to increase. But whenever there is increasing the price of diesel and as well as petrol, people will opt to go with this public transportation like metros, city buses, etc., rather than going on their personal vehicles. So this is a one important thing. And next one is even the rains in the month of September also exceeding the LPA, long period average. So because of this, we are also going to get a good kharif. And next one is September PMI data also shows that factory orders and as well as output expanded very much faster than comparing to that of the preceding month. So when we are comparing with that of the preceding months, now we have this PMI also increased due to increase in the factory orders, due to we can say output expanded faster. And the manufacturers, they reported a favorable market conditions and improvements in the sales volumes, with makers of consumer goods leading back. So even if you're talking about from manufacturing side, they reported they are mainly having some favorable market conditions. So in this way, that will be also leading to improvements in the scales and as well as volumes as well. And next one is, while some of the increase in orders at manufacturing companies, they clearly linked that to improve demand for Indian products in international market. So even why there is increasing of manufacturing, or we can say revival of this manufacturing, because in international market also there is increasing of demand for this Indian goods that is seen. So because of this, now even merchandise exports have been increased when we are comparing with that of the last month. So this is a thing which mainly said. And next, here one cause of concern which mainly highlighted in this topic is, so here medium, small and micro, medium, small and medium enterprises, that is MSME sector, that is still have to recover, because these MSME sector, they are the growth engines, right? So here these MSME sectors are facing the problem of lack of employment, and even there is reduced household incomes. So because of all these things, they are facing some problems, and government need to take some steps to resolve these problems. Okay, so this is just of this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says peace at the heart of education. So it is mainly talking about how can we get peace. So peace we can get through education. So how? Education can impart skills and as well as values. They are very much essential to prevent political conflicts in the society. So now let us try to see this topic, and this topic I liked the most in this today's articles. So now let us try to see here. So this article mainly talking about especially role of education in our society. So how education will change or will bring some solutions to the problems which we are facing in our society. So that is the thing which mainly talked in this article. So if you see on October 2nd every year, people they will gather together to celebrate ideas of peace. And this October 2nd is also celebrated as International Day of Non-Violence. So if you see some important things which mainly said in this article, it mainly says that the day October 2nd mainly presents opportunity. So on this day we are going to explore the causes of violence and also reassert a commitment especially to build a culture of dialogue through education. So actually what this article is saying that, so on October 2nd we are mainly coming together and celebrate this Gandhi Jayanti, and as well as it is an International Day of Non-Violence. So on this day here we are mainly trying to explore, we are mainly trying to search about what are the causes of violence and what is the solution for this violence. So here this article mainly says that education is one of the important tool that can be used mainly to put end to violence. So now let us try to see at present reality. In this COVID-19 situation, in this COVID-19 pandemic which introduced a new forces of division globally. So there is an increase in the forms of structural violence and even economic, racial, gender forms of injustice that is seen. And also even marginalized people, they faced a lot. Right? So because of all these things now in our society we can say there is inequality. So whenever inequality is rising, that will also leads to increase in the number of crimes. So whenever there is increase in the number of crimes, it is inversely proportional to happiness. We discussed 2 days ago. Right? So in this way we can connect one editorial or one article or one news with another news such that you can write a good answer. And this 100% will works. Okay? And next one is around the world consequential surge that is seen in inequality. And because of increase in inequality, there is an increase in the social tension, instability, and even that will lead to social unrest. So in order to rebuild solidarity and in order to bring back our reality here, we must understand what are the root causes of human animosity. And we need to think about how can we bring peace in the society. So if you see, one important thing here is the Pathway for Peace. So in Pathway for Peace, a flagship 2018 report. So this report mainly released by World Bank and United Nations, and this report mainly says that many of the world's conflict arise just from exclusion and as well as feeling of injustice. So whenever people they are having a feeling of injustice and as well as they are having fear of exclusion, then only that will leads to conflicts. So this according to Pathways for Peace, it is a flagship 2018 report. So in this way you have to remember this data, and please try to add this data in your data book. And next one is a policy to strengthen equity. So for UNESCO, education it is a significant part of the answer because it can impart skills, it can impart values. These are very much necessary to recognize and to prevent political conflict, and even that will be helpful for promoting of tolerance. So for UNESCO, education it is a significant part because whenever we are sending our children into schools, here teachers play an important role. Even family plays an important role mainly in shaping the behavior, in shaping the attitude of people, right? So whenever we are sending out children to schools, and whenever teachers are teaching about what are the values and what is the non-violence, what is the peace, then it will be very much helpful for incorporating or imparting skills and even various values. So in this way we can keep an end to this societal things, or we can see inequality. So even one educator, that is Maria Montessori, he said that preventing war, it is the work of politicians. So preventing war, it is the work of politicians, but here establishing peace, it is the work of educationalists. So you can write this type of quotes, it will be ultimate. Okay, and next one is the National Education Policy of 2020 in India, which mainly presenting a unique opportunity, especially to contribute to strengthening of equity, justice, and as well as social cohesion. Especially it will be helpful for strengthening of equity, justice, and social cohesion. So this National Education Policy, it is very helpful, and this NEP will provide a unique opportunity, because this policy, which mainly focuses on value based and experimental education, including it will also includes like critical thinking, cultural exchanges, teaching in regional languages, and as well as commitment to education for all. So because of all these things here, this policy will provide a good opportunity. And as well as schools reopen, we believe that peace education that can be even more integrated within national curricula, and even broader learning environment, that will help mainly to promote non-violence, conflict resolution, as well as compassion. So whenever schools are reopening now, our kids are going to schools. Most of our kids are going to schools, but some parents, they are not allowing to go to schools, so they are continuing through online education. But in most of the cases here, students, they are going to schools. So whenever the schools are reopening now, the parents are believing that there will be the peace education, and some skills, some morals, they will be incorporated in our children, such that this will be very much helpful for creating an environment so this environment will provide or will promote non-violence, will promote peace in the society, and will be leading to reducing the conflicts and even compassion in our society. And next one is equipping children from a young age with skills, and as well as these skills are mainly related to our dignity of others, then we can keep our society, which is a peaceful society. And next one is teachers and educators, they also need to equip with the skills to promote peace through experimental and as well as interactive methods. So here it is a responsibility of teachers mainly to incorporate skills. That skills, they need to be promote peace in the near future, and these skills that can be incorporated by using some experimental methods and as well as some interactive methods by showing some case studies, etc. And what is the way forward? What can be done? So first and the foremost thing that we can do here is, it is about role of UNESCO. UNESCO mainly says that UNESCO going to work to promote media, information literacy, and as well as sports, especially for the peace. So in this way, whenever we are promoting media, information literacy, and as well as sports, that will be helpful for awareness. So whenever we are providing maximum awareness, that will be mainly helpful for reduction of stereotypes in our society, and also it is against injustice. And next one is we can focus on inclusion. Next one is UNESCO highlights the need mainly to recognize and to improve opportunities for disadvantaged groups like women, like girls, persons with disabilities, etc. So we need to make education should be inclusive. It need to include even some disadvantaged groups, for example women, girls, and as well as persons with disabilities. So in this way, UNESCO also promotes safe and as well as non-violent spaces. And finally, what can we do? So here we need to understand the potential of education systems and even schools in building peaceful societies. So in these times of crisis, education plays an important role because it will provide some hope and as well as confidence in our society. So this is gist of this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says locked in a stalemate. So this is about India-China border dispute issue. And it's not a new topic, but again there are some important points which are mainly discussed. So actually before saying this article, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. If you want to clear UPSC 2022, we came up with one excellent, highly beneficial and as well as highly economical course, that is current affairs package along with mains answer writing practice. So in this course we are mainly focusing on current affairs. So why current affairs? Because many students, especially who are beginners, they do not have a proper practice of reading newspapers, right? So here they will feel very much difficulty to understand this current affairs and understand what is happening around. So in this course we are mainly focusing on current affairs and we are simplifying your current affairs. And one more thing here is, before entering into examination hall you need to know at least 1.5 years current affairs. And this is right time to join this course to cover this 1.5 years current affairs in a comprehensive manner. And here in this course we are also focusing on mains answer writing practice. So as you all know, if you clear prelims, you will be having just 3 months in your hands, and in this 3 months you want to do with you need to do with your GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4. So you will be having a very less time to practice your answers. So many students, they ignore this mains answer writing practice. So even though if you clear prelims, you cannot clear mains without proper answer writing skills. So in this course, you are going to write more than 50 essays and more than 300 questions. So in this way, this course will give you enough practice to write your answers and to practice your answers. And if you join this course, we also conduct prelims test on every Sunday and we provide you video explanation part. So in this way, this course which is designed as per demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing. Please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve your dream of clearing UPSC. So details of this course is given in description box, so please visit that once. And if you want to talk to me, you can call to this number 8074765513. Okay, and one more thing I want to say here is, so the registrations of this course, it is going to be end by October 1st week, most probably by October 10th. So if you want to join, please be hurry. And now let's come back and let us see this topic. It is about India-China relations. So in the coming week, our military commanders from India and China, from the both sides. So our military commanders from India and as well as China, they are going to hold a meeting. So it is our 13th round of talks. So in this talks, they are going to talk about line of actual control crisis. There are some areas, there is still we need disengagement. So they are going to talk about those areas. And in this meeting, they are going to have sharp exchanges between Beijing and as well as New Delhi regarding some relations. Actually, relationship between India and China, they are low since 1988 onwards. So on September 24th, the Chinese Foreign Ministry made one statement like, so because of India's transgression, that led to this type of issues and as well as standoff at LAC region. So mainly India also retaliated this statement which is given by Chinese Foreign Ministry, and they said that it is a provocative behavior which mainly seen from Chinese side, from North Indian side, and that also led to 1962 Indo-China war. And next one is, so this week's military commanders, they are going to talk about disputes in Hot Spring area and disputes mainly in this Demchok and Dipsang areas, which are the remaining areas that need to be resolved or disengaged. And since the crisis that happened since last year from April-May 2020 onwards, both the sides, they set up a buffer zone in this Galwan Valley area, and we saw there is disengagement in this Galwan Valley and as well as Pong Yong Su Lake area, right? And if you see the temporary arrangement which had helped mainly to prevent the recurrence of clashes, but if you see with the past agreements, they are mainly a long-term understanding to keep peace till eludes on the both sides. So but if you see here, yes, recently we are seeing there are many clashes which are mainly happening across this Indo-China border because of some developmental activities of China, and also there is also aggression that is seen from this Chinese side, and Chinese aggressive expansionist policy, and even Chinese came up with developing of cities across Indo-China border. So because of all these things, there is leading of tensions between India and China across the border. So if you see one more concern recently here is recent incidents which is seen in Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand comes under the central sector, right? So in the central sector also we are having some issues with this China, and also there is a continued military build-up that is seen in eastern sector. which mainly underlines the pressing needs for reaching this disengagement here. So in this context, what is the need? So we need to create a space, and in this space we need to cooperate on issues, and we need to tackle some issues like pandemic concerns and even terrorism, and even Chinese which is supporting Taliban in Afghanistan. So these are some important things that we need to discuss, and we need to create some space such that we can cooperate with each other, and we can find space. However, it will hinder the first restoring normalcy along the border. So when we are finding the space, and when we are coming with the discussions with the China, and when we are coming with the cooperation and proper coordination, then that will helps to mainly restore the normal thing across this LAC. So this is gist of this topic, and I hope it is clear. And there is one article regarding this Taliban, you can read by yourself. It is a very easy and easy to understand as well. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll to this current affairs course. So registrations are going to be end by October 10th. Thank you so much.